Good day, listeners. We present to you our podcast, Wounded Hearts, Wounded Churches. We discuss a variety of topics that are important to the church. Examples include sexual abuse, all types of addictions, religious abuse, and recovery. This platform provides counseling sessions, meaningful question and answer, and a counseling continuum. Our co-hosts include, this is Tennille, our technical director. We have an impressive array of program contributors. And I'm your host. My name is Prince, founder of Antioch Youth Center, 501(c) program, licensed counselor, now retired. So join in this exciting podcast, Wounded Hearts, Wounded Churches, and be a part of the healing process.
All right, exciting program. As always, we do our best to give you the best we can in content, factual information, to promote those three areas. But tonight, we have Steve Wingate again. Steve has served as a missionary. He's been to Cambodia, the Philippines. He has connections even in Gaza, what's going on there. He was in Ukraine for 6 years, and he speaks Russian, and many years in the ministry. You might know of his dad, I'm sure you do. Pastor for years, evangelist. And Steve planted Grace Philippine Missions. It's a feeding program that feeds over 1,000 children each month. Just exciting things that he's doing now. But today we're here for his new book. Can you imagine? 60 years in the Church of God. Brother Steve, number one, glad you're here, first of all. We've enjoyed these couple of times.
Thank you.
Yes, we
I
have.
really do mean that.
Yes, we have.
But I guess my first question, how can we get the book? We've already had, I think, 3 people who wanted to buy the book already. How can we buy the book?
Well, the book can be purchased on Amazon, but Amazon is not cheap, and I'm not in the book business. But I told people just email me, and I'll get you a hard copy of it. You can get a soft copy on Amazon, but probably I can get it for you. As a matter of fact, it just depends on how many people write me, but I can get it to you if you write me, or you can go to Amazon.com and type in 60 Years in the Church of God, SP Wingate.
All right, very good. If someone wants to find out about the Cambodia outreach, how can they do that?
We would love that. We'll be working in a school over there teaching English, but we're going to use curriculum as a children's Bible story book. It's a Buddhist school. They're allowing us to do that. So that if anybody wants to go, we can set you up. They have a room there. They'll feed you 2 meals a day if you just go over there and help and volunteer. But they can email me at wingatesp@gmail.com. Wingate, my last name, SP is in Stephen Paul @gmail.com.
Also, tell us a little bit about the feeding program in the Philippines. How did that come about?
The feeding program started when I went over there for the first time before COVID. I went over there on business, didn't know what I was getting myself into because I had traveled to Europe. I've been, I think, 23 plus countries, but never in Asia. And when I went to the Philippines for the first time, because I used to have a call center. So I went over there. Philippines have the biggest call centers in the world. And while I was there, I come in contact with a school, and I talked to them, and they said the students were so hungry that they couldn't even focus on their studies.
Wow.
So what we started doing is we started feeding 130 children a week in that school for $100 a month. And that was 4 times, 4 feedings for $100 a month.
Wow.
And that was a blessing, but we weren't doing any teaching, any Bible. And then it ended up after COVID, when they closed the schools and then they opened them back up after COVID, we could get in there. And that's when I went in there. We started feeding 300 a week in Manila, in one area, but that was overwhelming. We couldn't teach them, we couldn't talk to them, we couldn't communicate. So now what we do, Brother Moon, is we work with 6 churches there, and we feed about 50 children at each church. So the churches benefit from the feeding.
Right.
They play with the kids, they teach them the Bible, they send me the pictures. These are people that I know and love and trust. And we're pretty excited. It's around $1,200 a month is what it is. So we're excited, and I don't have to be there for that, which is really more exciting.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Brother Wingate, we get a lot of emails, and we thank the saints for that. And every now and again, we do answer those emails a certain time of the month. We have so many that come in.
Mm-hmm.
But one came in recently that they're reaching out for help. They really are. And I want to read excerpts of that letter
Okay.
because you've been through the pain and the hurting situations and how God is causing you to recover and to get healing. And many people are hurting out there, friends. I mentioned to you quite often,
Yeah.
there's a book by Mr. Davis called De Church. Can you imagine? 40 million people stop coming to church. You and I know folks are sitting home right now, no more church. So they've been
Yeah.
wounded or hurt others or whatever, but that is the issue.
Yes.
Our letter, the first excerpt of the letter that we got from a listener, it talks about ministers falling and the effects that it had on them. Any advice when the pastor falls, goes into sin, and that, tell us about that pain.
Well, we can talk about the pain, and I understand we've all been there. You know, the Wingate kids, our father was an evangelist. So if anybody has a reason to complain or moan or groan, and I'm not belittling any of that, if anybody has a reason to become better, we would, because we saw the splits, we saw the divisions. My dad would come in and hold a revival, and week before, 2 weeks before, they just had a split, and a split is terrible. When the pastors fall, that's even 1,000 times worse. And I've seen that at the 60 years in the Church of God. That's when I started the book. It was first called Revelation Equals Church Prophecy. And when I got into the book talking about Revelation and the spirit of the dragon, which is a destroying spirit, and all this, and then I come over to a chapter that said 60 years in the Church of God. And I just thought, you know what, that's probably what I ought to deal with a lot. Because in 60 years, and I have it a year for year, almost something to happen within the Church of God, the group that we grew up around, the different groups, I should say. But we got to look to Jesus. He's the author and the finisher of our faith, not
Yes,
man.
yes,
The problem is that we place a lot of confidence in men, and we should, you know,
sure.
but we somehow forget that. And I don't want to be negative in a way, but I think that in the Church of God, we have lifted up the Church of God more than we have Jesus in many cases. And we one preacher preached a message, and I became offended by that message. And he preached, the Church of God preacher preached a message. He said, "I'm becoming disillusioned with the illusion." And his
Mhm.
thought was he had this illusion of what the Church of God was, and he said he became disillusioned with that because the Church of God wasn't that. So I think that we hold the standard so high sometimes, and I'm not against a high standard, but I think that we expect so many things out of the Church of God, and when we don't attain it, then we're like, well, we're failing somewhere. Instead of being more realistic, I'm not saying give in to sin, Brother Prince. I'm
Right,
saying,
right, right, right.
I'm just saying that I think that the preachers have held such a rule and such a stronghold over the church. I've heard them preach, obey me, even when I'm wrong, because I'm still
Wow.
your pastor. See, then I have a problem with that. And usually those pastors that were preaching that way today, a lot of them have backslidden because we've given them full sway and they've done what they wanted to do. It's sad.
And so we have to be careful that we don't allow ourselves, that we don't give God enough allegiance, giving him the pastor more allegiance than God, giving the ministry more allegiance than God.
Yes, I don't know how your background that much, but I know enough about it that I have total confidence in you, and I know the people that you were around, and you've been around for a lot of years. But I know that in the groups that I grew up in, when they get up and testify, the first thing they say is, "I thank God for my pastor, and my pastor told me to do this, this, and this, and this, and I obeyed my pastor, even though you knew good and well that some of the things that pastor was saying wasn't even biblical." Well, the beard, for one example. How can you preach against a beard? And I don't want to go down that, but these things are majoring in minors. We need to major in major things, not minor things. And
True.
let's overlook each other's differences and let's show love. My goodness, that's the number one thing that conquers all evil.
That's true.
Yeah.
I knew a pastor in Ohio. His name was Ron Cabin, and I would observe this guy. And when people would lift him up, he would put himself back down. He had a way of keeping his feet on the ground. And that was
See,
impressive. That was impressive to me.
it
Oh,
is.
Brother Steve, some saints' children, according to this email, they're dabbling in maybe Islam or Buddhism, other religions. What What's going on there, do you think?
I think what it is they don't know about that, and they don't realize even what they're playing with. And it's easy. It's kind of like the grass looks greener on the other side of the fence, but the
Sure.
grass isn't greener over there. I guarantee you. Look, I've been on both sides of the fence. I didn't go down that road, but I was on both sides of the fence, and I'm gonna tell you, I'd much rather be on this side of the fence than
Amen.
being on the other side. With all the bad, with all the negative, and all the humanity of people who have done certain things, Jesus is still the way maker, and he's the only way to God, and it's the only way I want to live. I made my mind up that years ago.
And Saints, next week we're going to talk about Steve's recovery. He doesn't see it, but I do. Being a counselor, I see healing there. This guy's traveling, he's preaching, playing music, going outside the country, and he spends half his time laughing, giggling, and playing. And see, and that's healing there, because it's catching really. So we're going to talk about that next week. How others can come back to church and get that healing that they need to continue to serve God. All right. The email also said that the Church of God is not the answer. Wow.
Well, Jesus is the answer. You and I both know that, and I don't want to be negative at all. And I don't want anybody to throw rotten tomatoes at me, but I think in the Church of God we have exalted the church so much that, and I don't mean that in a bad. I've been to places when they would sing "Old Church of God," you'd think that they were singing the national anthem to the American flag or something.
Mhm.
And I'm not against that. I love the church just as much as anybody, but I also believe, what are we exalting? Jesus said, "If I be lifted up, I will draw all men unto me," not to the church, but to me. And then that's part of the church is part of it. That's the bride of Christ. You know that, and I know that. So this person, evidently, whoever wrote that email, and for them to say that is just there. It comes down to that they're just upset and discouraged, and God needs to help them find their way. That's what it comes down to.
They are. And friends, let me talk to the audience. If you listening tonight have went into Eastern religion, or you're studying with the JWs, or if you went back to the Baptist, tell us about that. You can text in 1-866-538-3664. All right. The letter states that glad you found a way to unload the baggage. They're glad you found a way to unload the baggage. Any response on that? Did you unload the baggage, or are you still carrying, or what's the situation?
Well, I think, brother, that it's like I told one of my brothers, I said, what you're going through today, I went through 20, 30 years ago. So, I told you when the one cleansing split came that I wrote the pastor there in Cincinnati and asked him to send me tapes. I was 13 years old. I was branded after that. I mean, I was branded by all the ministers. All of my brothers played on my dad's recordings, and he's made several recordings except me. I was never allowed.
Wow.
Was
Wow.
that done on purpose? I don't know, but that's what happened
Wow.
because I was always branded as being they said that I was trying to find another way to heaven, that I was in the enemy camp, because I went up to God's acres and visited, or I went here and visited, I went there. I'm going to fellowship all the redeemed if they're living holy. It doesn't matter to me. And I think that we have divided enough, and I think the devil's winning when we are divided, but he cannot win when we are together as one.
Unity of God's people. When you were ostracized, how did that feel? I mean, when by your family? I mean, I don't want to bring back old wounds, but wow, I can't imagine.
It was a lifetime, and I don't mean that in a bad way. When I would go home and visit some of the family that attended the church there and outside of Huntsville with their key preacher, it was like walking on eggshells. I didn't even like it. Especially the sister-in-laws. They were the meanest. And it was what it was, and I'm over it. Look, that was a long time ago, and I tried to get over it through the years. And when they're all chummy up together, and you're kind of the oddball in the family,
Mm-hmm.
you learn as a child. You just either suck it up and accept it and get over it. And see, that's what I said. What they're going through today, because some of them have taken the stands that I took 30 years ago. Some they're going through today, and they're feeling and understanding what I went through years ago, being ostracized by certain family members because because you believe a different way than they do. It's terrible.
What was your first steps to the healing that you're enjoying now?
Well, I think probably, all these years I found myself thinking about it, thinking about it, thinking about it. And then when we Wingate brothers get together and we talk on the phone for 3 hours, we talk about it. It's
Sure,
it's what we talk about. It's been our life, our whole life.
sure,
And we don't sit around and talk about the hurt. We just talk about situations,
sure.
around the church and situations that we faced and this one and that one. And it's just like we're to the point because we're getting older. We really don't want to talk about it anymore. We want
Sure,
to be healed. We want to move
sure,
on because
sure.
we want that there's a lost and dying world going to hell.
That's
In
right.
73, when the one cleansing split came, do you know what was going on in the US government? They were passing a law that abortion was legal. The Church of God's
Wow.
fighting while they're passing laws to make abortion legal. You see
Wow.
what I'm saying? So
Wow.
while we're fighting, the devil's he's also out there. Forward is a battle cry. We shall conquer. We shall conquer. And the only way we're going to conquer is we got to put that stuff behind us and move on.
Wow. What you said, that really had an effect. The abortion law, that were they aborting 1 million children a year back then, even
Yeah,
now probably still, and we're fighting.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
So, Brother Wingate, next week I'm going to ask you to come back because we want to talk about the healing process in detail.
Okay.
Again, you've been traveling worldwide. You've been going different areas of the country, and being a counselor, I'm always in that mode, and I see a healing going on. I see a lot of hurting people these days,
Yeah.
but I see you laughing. You text me about what 4 times a day, you know,
I'm
and
sorry, brother.
I don't mind. I don't mind it, but that's health. When a person's hurting, they isolate, get by themselves, and you're not doing that. You are out there. You were just at 2 Church of God meetings in Asheville, Columbus, and that shows you're getting back in. So we
Yeah.
want to talk
Yeah.
about that next week, the
Okay.
process. We know it takes time. People's
Yeah.
recovery time is different. We know that. But we do
Right.
want to get the process going. Any last minute comments before we go from you? Any comments before we go, Brother Wingate, from you? Before we go?
I think you just got to get yourself busy. Like I told you 3 years ago, for the hardest time that anybody can go through, I need some children, the Filipinos that don't have a lot of money, and some of the pastors over there that are farmers and they make about $70 a month, and it's been a blessing to be able to do that over there. That's helped me a lot. Yes.
So we're going to talk about that next week, friends, about how to recover from those pains. And again, I reiterate with my redundancy, can you imagine 40 million people stopped coming to church? And folks, they stopped coming. They're sitting home. We want to reach out to those young people, wherever they are, to start some healing and recovery, to come back to God, or just to get that healing and forgiveness back in there. My friend, thank you again so much. We appreciate you so much. To our director, thank you so much. And those who chimed in tonight, thank you so much. It is a blessing to reach out the way we are. Have a good night. May the Lord bless you.